Emperor Xiaowen of Northern Wei, Tuoba Hong, October 13, 467, April 26, 499, was of Xianbei ethnicity and the seventh emperor of the Northern Wei dynasty, reigned from September 20, 471 to April 26, 499. He was an outstanding statesman and reformer of ethnic minority origin in ancient China. In 469, Tuoba Hong was appointed crown prince. Due to the Northern Wei policy of the noble child causes the mother's death, his birth mother was ordered to die, and he was raised solely by his grandmother, Empress Dowager Feng. On September 20, 471, the 5-year-old Tuoba Hong ascended the throne after his father abdicated in his favor. However, his father, Tuoba Huang, continued to hold actual control over the government. In June 476, the retired Emperor Tuoba Huang suddenly passed away. At that time, Tuoba Hong had just turned 10 years old, so Empress Dowager Feng exercised imperial power in the name of the Grand Empress Dowager and issued decrees in the name of Emperor Xiaowen, Tuoba Hong. Empress Dowager Feng was a remarkable woman, intelligent, resolute, and decisive, who devoted her life to the Sinicization reforms of the Northern Wei. Empress Dowager Feng was a far-sighted stateswoman who understood that the culture of a people is the foundation of its survival. Although the Northern Wei had temporarily unified the Central Plains through military power, she realized that without embracing the refined traditional culture of the Han Chinese, it would be difficult to maintain long-term stability in a multi-ethnic regime. She revered Confucian culture, promoted propriety and social ethics, emphasized education, and banned superstitious practices such as divination. Emulating Han Chinese dynasties, she established a bureaucratic hierarchy and salary system for the Northern Wei, ensuring that officials at all levels had clearly defined duties and closing loopholes for corruption. Empress Dowager Feng guided the nomadic tribal alliances of the northern frontier to gradually integrate into Han Chinese civilization, represented by Central Plains culture. This paved the way for the full-scale Sinicization led by the succeeding 7th Emperor of Northern Wei, Tuoba Hong, uniting the northern peoples under Han cultural influence. In the early years, the Tuoba Xianbei people lived beyond the northern frontier. Although Tuoba Gui, the leader of the Tuoba Xianbei tribe, founded the Northern Wei and established its capital in Xingla, he harbored great ambitions to move south and take control of the Central Plains. However, at that time, the most powerful empire in the region was later Yan, founded by Murong Chui, which blocked Northern Wei's southern path. It was only after Murong Chui's death and the subsequent internal turmoil in later Yan that its power declined, allowing Northern Wei to rise as the most powerful state in the Central Plains. This gave Tuoba Gui the opportunity to move the capital from Xingla, beyond the frontier, to Pingqing, a city inhabited by both nomadic peoples and Han Chinese. Now, as the Northern Wei sought to fully Sinicize the northern peoples, Emperor Xiaowen had to move the capital once again, from Pingqing to Luoyang, a central hub of Han Chinese population and a city known as the ancient capital of 13 dynasties. To ensure the success of this relocation, Emperor Xiaowen carried out careful planning and strategic arrangements. In May of the year 493, Tuoba Hong convened the court officials and announced a large-scale campaign against the southern Qi dynasty. However, his true, undisclosed plan was to use the southern expedition as a means to establish the relocation of the capital as a fait accompli. At the court assembly, Tuoba Hong first instructed the Minister of Ceremonies, Wang Chen, who was in charge of ancestral rites, music, and court protocol, to perform a divination to determine the auspiciousness of the plan. When the result was highly favorable, he was overjoyed. Seeing his reaction, the other officials dared not voice any objections. His uncle, Prince Qing of Renqing, Tuoba Qing, stepped forward to oppose the plan. Emperor Xiaowen grew angry and said, "The state is my state, does Renqing wish to obstruct the use of military force?" Tuoba Qing replied, "Though the state belongs to your majesty, I am a minister of the realm. Knowing the dangers of war, how can I remain silent?" After a while, Emperor Xiaowen calmed down and said, "Everyone may speak freely, there's no harm in that." After the court session, Emperor Xiaowen immediately summoned Prince Qing of Renqing, Tuoba Qing, dismissed his attendants, and spoke with him in private. "This undertaking is indeed not easy. Our state rose from beyond the frontier and later moved to Pingqing. This is a land suited for warfare, not for implementing civil governance. Now, we aim to change customs and transform society, which is truly difficult. The Shaohan Pass region was once the residence of emperors, the lands of the Luo River were home to kings. I intend to use this Grand Southern campaign as an opportunity to relocate to the Central Plains. What are your thoughts on this, Prince of Renqing? At that moment, Tuoba Hong finally understood the emperor's true intention and immediately expressed his support, saying, "Your Majesty's plan to relocate to the Central Plains to govern all under heaven is a cause for great celebration among the people." Emperor Xiaowen, still concerned, asked. The northern Xianbei people are deeply attached to their homeland. If we move the capital, they will likely feel alarmed and uneasy. What can be done about that? Qin responded decisively. Extraordinary undertakings are not within the grasp of ordinary minds. As long as your Majesty is resolute in your decision, what could they possibly do? Upon hearing this, Emperor Xiaowen exclaimed excitedly. Renqing, you are truly my Zhongliang. Referring to the brilliant strategist who served Liu Bang during the founding of the Han Dynasty. In June, Emperor Xiaowen immediately issued an order to repair the river bridges in preparation for the army's crossing. He personally held a military review and assigned the Minister of Works, Li Chong, to oversee the selection of talented and courageous soldiers. In July, he appointed his eldest son, Tuoba Hong, as the crown prince and issued a public proclamation, sending a message to the Qi territory, announcing the southern expedition. He also issued a decree to raise conscripts and recruit soldiers in the Yang and Su provinces, and sent Prince Guangling, Tuoba Yu, with an imperial mandate to pacify the 6 northern garrisons and mobilize elite cavalry. By this point, preparations were nearly complete. In August 493, Emperor Xiaowen personally led the civil and military officials of the Northern Wei, along with the main army, in a grand march southward. Many ministers, who had hoped someone else would speak out against the campaign, were reluctant to be the first to stick their necks out. However, seeing that the plans were about to become a fait accompli, they realized that if they didn't speak up now, it would be too late. As a result, they all rushed to the emperor, urging him to abandon the southern expedition. Emperor Xiaowen, secretly pleased, outwardly appeared stern. He berated each minister who came to advise against the campaign, scolding them harshly. The Northern Wei army arrived in Luoyang at the end of September. Unfortunately, the weather had been rainy for several days, and both the soldiers and the civil and military officials were in low spirits. The army rested and waited for orders, while Emperor Xiaowen, undeterred by the rain, visited the site of the old imperial palace in Luoyang. What he saw, however, was a scene of ruin, broken walls, collapsed structures, and overgrown weeds. He sighed deeply and said to his attendants, "The Jin dynasty failed to nurture virtue and uphold the state, and in a single day, their ancestral halls and state temples collapsed. What is left is this desolate, ruined site. It truly grieves me." After a brief rest in Luoyang, the army continued their march south. Emperor Xiaowen, dressed in military attire and holding a horsewhip, rode at the front of the troops. By this time, the ministers were exhausted and reluctant to continue in the rain. One by one, they knelt before the emperor's horse, bowed their heads, and tearfully urged him to halt the southern campaign. Emperor Xiaowen intentionally reproached them, saying, "The court has already made plans for the campaign, and the army will continue its march. What are you all still complaining about?" The Minister of Works, Li Chong, and the others advised. "This action is one that the whole world opposes, and only Your Majesty insists on proceeding. We do not understand why Your Majesty is going against the will of the people by launching this southern campaign. We dare to beg Your Majesty to reconsider, even at the cost of our lives." Emperor Xiaowen was greatly enraged and said, "We are on the path to unifying the entire country. You scholars have repeatedly cast doubts on this grand plan. If you continue to speak out of turn, you will be dealt with according to military law." The ministers continued to cry and plead, but Emperor Xiaowen, still angry, finally addressed them, saying, "This campaign is no small matter. If we mobilize such a large force and achieve nothing, how will we justify it to future generations? If we turn back now, how will we leave a legacy for posterity? If we don't carry out the southern campaign, we will have to relocate the capital here. This is a critical opportunity that must not be missed. What do you, my lords and ministers, think? The decision has already been made, and there is no turning back. Those who wish to move the capital, step to the left, those who do not, step to the right. As soon as the emperor finished speaking, everyone immediately stepped to the right. Prince of Nannan, Tuoba Hong, who had consistently opposed the southern campaign, saw that the emperor's attitude had softened. Fearing that the pro-war faction might stir up trouble, he quickly spoke up. Great leaders always make their own decisions. If your majesty intends to abandon the southern campaign and relocate the capital to Luoyang, this is the wish of U.S. ministers and the great fortune of the common people. Though most of the Northern Wei nobles did not wish to relocate the capital, they feared the prospect of war and thus reluctantly expressed their agreement. The clever Emperor Xiaowen took advantage of people's natural tendency to avoid harm and seek benefit. He presented two options, one difficult to accept and the other even harder, forcing everyone to choose between the two. The Northern Wei nobles, left with no choice, decided to choose the lesser of two evils, thus allowing Emperor Xiaowen to achieve his original goal of relocating the capital to Luoyang.